Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this pre-assembly meeting on how to vote 101. And as our welcome song said, we are all in this together tonight. We are going to learn how to use this voting platform and be ready for a Synod Assembly next week. If you don't know me, my name is Pastor Colleen Montgomery. I'm the director for digital ministries for the Virginia Synod. I'm excited to welcome you all tonight into this meeting. And as we begin, I want to take some moment here to start with a land acknowledgement. So as we gather on Zoom from across the Virginia Synod for a pre-assembly workshop, the Virginia Synod Office of the Bishop wishes to acknowledge and honor the indigenous peoples upon whose ancestral homelands we gather. The Virginia Synod Office of the Bishop is located on the original and ancestral homelands of the Tutelo and Monacan peoples. That's for the Western Office of the Bishop in Salem, and the Chesapeake and Lumbee peoples, and that's for the Eastern Office of the Bishop in Norfolk. And we give thanks for their presence here and there since time immemorial. We also wish to recognize and honor all of our Indigenous siblings who have and continue to call this land their home.
I am Pastor John Wirtz. I'm one of the assistants to the bishop and the director for evangelical mission for the Virginia Synod. And again, it's a pleasure to have you all here this evening as we prepare for our upcoming assembly. As we get started, just wanted to remind you of the core verse that we are using in our themes for the assembly. When Bishop Milton gave her speech at last year's assembly, she lifted up this verse from Joshua 1:9. Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged. The Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And from that, she's developed a few ideas, vision ideas, and the one that we're focused on for this year is strong, and that's where our thought for strong connections comes from. As we think about the assembly, that is one of the places where we see strong connections. It is an opportunity for us to gather together to conduct the ministry and the business of the Virginia Synod. It's a place where we see the ministries of the Virginia Synod on display, where we'll have an opportunity to worship together and connect. And we just thank you for being a part of this ministry that we share, for the connections that you have to one another, to your congregations, and to the whole Synod. As we move forward with this digital assembly, we're going to use this voting technology that we want to show you and teach you a little bit about this evening. And we're going to use the voting software for several different things during the day of the assembly. And we're going to walk you through those. Mark Feit, who's here from Options Technology, he's going to be doing some demonstrations. We're going to have some practice votes with you, but there's really three primary ways that we're going to be using this voting technology we're going to show you. So I just want to hit all three of those, and then we'll go back and work through them. The first is registering your attendance at the assembly. When you're going to get an email from us once the registration closes that has Zoom information, that has the meeting codes, and the ability for you to log into the assembly and log into the voting system. Each person is going to have a unique code. That's why you need ideally a different device for each person who's attending. And when I say device, it could be a computer, it could be an iPad, it could be a digital capable phone. And when you register and you enter the system, that will mark your attendance, and you will go on the list of people who are a part of the assembly officially. For those of you who were at the first digital assembly we did back during COVID, when we were trying to figure out digital life, you had to kick into a Zoom room, and then we physically were checking you off on a list. This time it's going to be a lot more streamlined. The second thing you're going to use this system for is if you have to address the assembly in any fashion. So if you want to make a motion. If you have a point of order, there's going to be a button you can click, enter what you want to do, and then the folks running the assembly will be able to see, it'll show up that you want to speak, and then we'll be able to recognize you. And then the third thing we're going to do is vote on motions. And so we're going to do a practice motion, a set of practice votes this evening. But those are the main three functions that we're going to use our voting platform for. And so with that, I want to hand it over to Mark and let him talk you through a little bit of the technology that we're going to be using.
Okay, thanks, John. Hopefully you can see my screen here. And I appreciate the opportunity. My job tonight is to give you an orientation of the voting system and give you a chance to do some practice voting. You'll all be receiving before the actual meeting, you'll receive an email that has your voting credentials. And tonight we're just going to use an open enrollment process. And it's a really simple three-step process. So all you have to do is open a browser. And for those of you that have a computer, we would recommend that you try to use Zoom and the browser on the same computer where you're using Zoom. It's a little bit easier to do it on a computer than it is sometimes on a phone because the screen is quite small. And of course, you can use a tablet, so you can use the voting system on one device, and you can use Zoom on another device, whatever seems to work best for you, that you seem most comfortable with. But what I've got here is a browser that's open. And what you do is you go to www.voter.com, and you'll see a screen that looks like this. And it's going to ask you for a session number. And the session number is 133971764. That'll be in the email that you'll receive, but you can do that. Hopefully you can do that tonight and you can test it out. So 133971764. And then you click the connect button. And once you do that, you'll be in the session, and you should see some kind of a logo, or you might see the words waiting for session to start. But you'll be in the session, sort of like joining Zoom, but this is the voting system. It's a secure system. And what happens is for the actual assembly, we'll know your login credential. So once you log in, that'll register the fact that you're securely participating. All your votes will be tabulated, and there'll be a record of your attendance and participation in all the business activities before the assembly. So let's go ahead and see if everybody can get logged in. Everybody in? Are you ready to vote? We'll see. Okay.
Where do I type the thing in? All I got is Zoom here.
So what you want to do is open a web browser. It can be Chrome. It could be whatever your web browser is.
All right. So I'm
go
going to have to
go to V as in voter, vvoter.com.
I have to get out of full screen then.
You do, yeah, from Zoom.
But it's not letting me do that. Well,
sometimes with Zoom, it depends on your computer, but if you hit escape, sometimes that'll take you out of the full screen mode with Zoom.
All right. Now, vVoter.
Yeah, if it says waiting for presentation to start, that's probably accurate. I'm going to go out. Let me see if I can refresh this. See if we can do another logo. So those that are seeing waiting for presentation to start, hopefully you can see a logo now.
I get a message that says this site cannot be reached.
Okay. So you may have some kind of a secure something on your device may not allow you to see all websites.
He probably did what I did. One V. It's two V's.
Two V's, yeah. vvoter.com. V is V and then V again. vvoter.com. And you'll receive in your instructional email with your credentials, there'll be a link. So you'll be able to click that link and it should be a little bit easier to open it up.
All I can say is I haven't stood a word that's been said. All I have on my screen is a square that has a Pastor Leslie Weber on it.
Are you on a laptop, an iPad, or a phone?
On a laptop.
Laptop. Okay. So You should be able to, down at the bottom, or somewhere on the screen, you should either say more, or you should see a button that says chat.
I see that.
Okay, press that, press the chat so you can see the chat. And then I just put the link to vVoter in the chat. It's should be the very last thing that shows up. And if you click on that, it should take you to the screen that allows you to enter the session code.
Okay, it's just a screen and it has a blue thing that says connect.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
And yes, for those of you that have a title page that says,
Mark, I got vVoter, but it says waiting for presentation to start.
Yeah, that's okay. Let me see if I can refresh it for you. And you see a logo now?
No,
You also might need to refresh your
You may need
browser.
to refresh your browser.
I think I'm going to shut down and go to a different computer because I keep getting popped up. My browser is weak. So I may just disconnect and come back up on a different computer.
Mark, we had a question in the chat. Will this session number be the same session number for the assembly that we're using tonight?
Yes, great question.
Perfect.
So you can write it down and note it. It'll be the same session number. It'll ask for, it will ask for, after you log into the session, it will ask for your personal login ID, which will be sent to you in an email. And so that'll be the second step that will securely join with your credentials for the actual assembly.
We'll have really three different types of questions, three different types of votes that will happen during the assembly. And so we're going to practice each of those types starting here in just a second.
Okay. Hopefully everybody's logged in and we can go ahead and do our first practice vote. And you can see here on my screen share, the question should be up on your vVoter portal. And you should be able to see the question, did it rain yesterday at your location where you are? If it was a yes, you'll click this little radio button next to yes, and then you'll click the submit button. And if it was no rain at your location yesterday, then you'll click no and click the submit button for no. So go ahead and vote now. Make a selection and it'll say vote received either yes, or if you vote no, it'll say vote received no. It doesn't mean that your vote wasn't received. It means you actually made the no selection. So go ahead and vote now, and I can see so far 61 votes from the group. So we'll give you about another 15-20 seconds to vote on this question, and then we'll close it out.
We have
Anybody need
somebody
more?
in the chat who's still saying that they don't see the question. Do they need to refresh their browser?
They do. It should look like what we're sharing on screen right now.
Since this system has an individual ID for every person at the assembly, does it also record every person's vote? I mean, who each individual vote, yes, no, up, down, whatever, as opposed to simply a blind vote? I know people are going to have that concern.
Yeah, so there's an audit trail of votes that are stored on every vote. And we have the ability to produce that information by individual, but that's not, I think there are some secret voting that typically happens as part of the assembly. So if we're contracted to share that information, we will share it. If we're not contracted to share the information of who voted how, then we will not share it to protect secrecy and privacy of voting.
And we have not contracted to share that information.
I just couldn't remember, so I'm sorry about that.
No, good question.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. We have 67 votes, and so we'll go ahead and tally the vote, and you can see we had some rain at some locations and some that we didn't. So I'm going to go ahead and push this out so you can kind of see it on the shared screen, and should be able to see now on your vVoter screen. 38 people said yes, it did rain at their location, and we had 29 people said no, it did not rain at their location. So it looks like we've got pretty much, I think we got 76 people on the call, so there might be 6 or 8 people that are still struggling to get logged in, but it looks like we got everybody was able to vote successfully. See if we got some questions about this.
Just one note for folks. You saw there was a delay in putting that chart up on the screen. That's intentional. We are required to have the chair look at these vote totals before we publish them to the assembly. So that as we move through this, that's going to be the same process you see. There will be a display, and then we are a delay before we display the actual vote totals.
Okay, so let's do another practice question. So this is question number 2. Easter candy. So please pick your favorite from among these 3 Easter candies. Number 1, if you like chocolate best. Number 2, if you like jelly beans best. Or number 3, if you like Peeps best.
What if I voted for jelly beans and then changed my mind and wanted to change my vote?
That's a great question. So you just change your vote and click submit again. Whatever the last choice is that you make during the voting period, that will be your recorded vote. So you can't change your mind. You can't stuff the ballot box. Whatever the last choice that you make, that'll be recorded as your selection, as your vote. So let's go ahead. I've got 59 votes so far. We'll give you about another 15, 20 seconds here.
So during the voting process, you can change your vote a number of times, and then there's going to be a collection time when whatever you've got there that's been submitted last is going to be your vote.
Whatever the last selection that you make during that voting period, that will be what's recorded and tabulated for you. That's correct.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and close it out. And so what I'm doing is I'm showing this privately so John and the leadership team can see it. They can see the tabulation. And then when they designate that we want to disclose that publicly, they'll give me that instruction and we'll go ahead and do that. We'll publish it. I'm going to go ahead and publish it now, and you can see on your vVoter browser, chocolate was the winner, and 48 people said they prefer chocolate. Jelly beans was Peeps were not preferred. Okay.
And just Mark, let me just jump in real fast. So just you're voting for candies here, but this is the type of vote that we will use if we are electing one person from a group of candidates. So if we have elect one person to Senate Council and we have 3 candidates, this is what it would look like. If we had the previous one, the yes, no would be, are you voting for or against a particular motion? This one is to elect one person. And the next one that Mark is going to show you is if we have to elect multiple people. Let's just say we've got 2 to elect to a particular position. So that's what the next sample vote is going to be for.
Okay, so that's a great segue. So here we go. This is our third and final practice question. So this question allows you to make 2 choices off of a list of 5 different choices. So what beverages will you be drinking during the Synod Assembly? What beverages will you be drinking during the Synod Assembly? Vote for 2 of the 5. So what you can do here is you can go down and make 2 selections. It will not allow you to make more than 2. If you select one that you don't like, you can uncheck it and then check a different one. So you're going to place a check mark next to the 2 that you prefer out of the 5, and then you'll click submit. And your portal will acknowledge to you which 2 selections you've made. In my case, I made choice 1 and choice 3. So go ahead and make 2 selections and click the submit button. Okay, we're going to close the vote. Now I'm privately showing to the leadership team the tabulation for each of the 5 choices. And then we'll assume that they've acknowledged that it looks correct to them, and we'll go ahead and publish the results. And what you can see on your vVoter portal here, and also with the screen that I'm sharing, this is the actual number of votes for each of the choices. So the top choice was water. There were 53 people that voted, made one of their 2 selections for water. And then we had 35 people made one of their 2 selections for coffee, and so forth, all the way down to 5 selections for orange juice, choice number 4. So orange juice and Peeps might not be the most popular things for them.
We did have a question in the chat about writing in votes, comically like tomato juice. But at the actual assembly, we will have received all of the nominations before the vote, because we have to have folks fill out a nomination form that voting members will be able to read before we vote. So the chance to kind of write in something is to nominate them ahead of time.
There was another question about what about abstentions? I'm not sure exactly how you want to. We can add an abstain choice, or you can simply not submit a choice on the ballot. Those are the different ways that we can handle abstention. Other questions we can help with?
So, Mark, it looks like at least one person said they were trying to click, and it looks like their vote, it never showed up that their vote was received on their screen. If that happens day of and it's not showing up, is that the sort of thing that you would use the raise a question? Does that show up in the software is I guess what I'm asking.
They could. I think what may happen is I'm going to go back and I'm going to go back to the first question, and we'll vote that again just to show you an example. And I'm going to revote this one. So I brought the first question up. Did it rain at your location? And what you can see on my screen share is when I click one of these choices, the acknowledgement comes here, and it typically comes within about 3 seconds, sometimes a little bit more. But what can happen is depending on what type of device you're using, it can be obscured. So in other words, it doesn't show up on the first page of your browser device. So what you might want to do is size your browser, or you can hit the control on this is a Windows browser. I can hit control minus, and you can see it makes the text smaller. I can hit plus, and it makes it larger to the point where it doesn't appear on my screen. So if I hit control minus, you can see I can change the magnification of my browser window. That's the most likely cause of why the vote received message would not be appearing. And so you might want to adjust your browser window and browser size, and you should be able to see that. But if you have a concern about that on the day of the assembly, you can put that in the chat. We can also check to make sure people's votes are coming through. But I think we'll have some practice votes, so hopefully we'll have it all ironed out by the time we're actually casting real ballots.
Yeah, Mark, I think ours is the one that we didn't see the receive, but I think you probably hit it on the head that we have it on a split screen, so it may have not been able to put it on there.
Might have been obscured at the bottom there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Other questions?
So that's a really good maybe transition to this. Just note that we will make again day of the assembly, which is the chat like we're using tonight is for conversations that, informal questions. We will post information there, but business related questions will go into the system, will be entered through the vVoter. There'll be a place where you can click to enter stuff there.
It's actually a button that'll be at the bottom right corner of your browser. It says speak. And when you click the speak button, it'll present you a list of choices about, I want to communicate, I want to speak in favor, or I have a point of order, things like that. And then you'll submit that. And it'll be time stamped. It'll show up on a screen that the bishop will be able to see, and that'll be monitored by the leadership team. So the speak button will appear in the lower right corner of your browser. And it will be tied to your name, so they'll be able to identify by name that you have a request to speak.
Right. And yes, we will have time limits for how long the voting stays open, but we'll also be able to see if there's a significant problem, if votes have changed, total numbers that we could delay if need be. It's not like a countdown timer. It will be announced by the bishop or Vice President Blythe Scott, if she's doing that. The voting is about to close. Voting will soon be closing. The vote will close. Something like that will happen before we close the voting.
We do have a few voting members who have indicated that they'll be sharing a single laptop to vote on. Can you share about what it will look like to log in and log out for each of those voters, Mark?
Yeah, so you would have to, in order to do that, you'd have to close your browser or close the browser session and log in with a different identity. So I would recommend that if you can try to get additional devices for those people, that would be a recommended approach, because I'm not sure the voting is going to be open for a long, long time. So several people can log in and out of the system. It may not be practical. So you can do it, but you'd have to close your browser and then another person would open it and log in and so forth every time you vote. So it might be better to have one person, one device.
Mark, just a follow-up question. Could you have like like an incognito browser window open and do that to be a separate person?
I wouldn't recommend that. In theory you could, but I think since everyone wants to make sure their vote's going to tabulate, I think that again it would be better to have a separate device with a separate browser each time. You could use a different type of browser, but again, the technology is meant to be secure, and a lot of it depends on the operating system and the type of browsers that you're using and so forth. It's in order to maintain security, we would really recommend that everybody have their own device.
I'm just thinking that along with the answer to that question, this might be the great time to mention the resource that Pastor Colleen made, how to best practices for participating together, that says that exact advice of you can have one Zoom, but have one voting thing for each person.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, we certainly appreciate your participation this evening. This video will be posted, so you can go back and watch this, and if you want to see again all of these different instructions, certainly day of, you can log on early to the assembly, and we'll have folks to support you as you work through and get settled in for our day of assembly together. And with that, I want to close us with a word of prayer. So let us pray. Loving God, we thank you for the members of the Virginia Synod, for those who are sharing their time to be a part of this assembly. We give you thanks for the ways that we come together, for the ways that your Spirit moves among us and connects us. We ask you to bless us as we prepare for the assembly. Bless us on the day of the assembly as we seek to do your will for the Virginia Synod. We ask all this in your name. Amen. Well, thank you, everybody. We look forward to seeing you back here at the assembly, and we hope you have a good rest of the evening.